the timing of deep unrest. It's that quiet hour, not of dawn, but of a different kind of unveiling. The air thickens, not with an external storm, but with the internal pressure of a lie that has finally become too loud to ignore. You feel it in the ache behind your eyes, in the way your own voice sounds foreign, borrowed. It's a moment when denial, that worn-out cloak, begins to fray, revealing the raw, exposed nerve beneath. This is not a sudden crisis, but the slow, inevitable buildup of so much unacknowledged truth, a geological shift within the landscape of the soul, the sacred moment when the emotional body can no longer lie to itself. It's in the way you scroll mindlessly, the forced laughter at gatherings, the carefully curated online persona that feels more like a distant relative than your own reflection. These are the whispers that finally crescendo into a roar. What happens when the familiar structures of your life, built on a foundation of self-deception, begin to crack? In the coming sections, we will examine the forgotten wisdom of how the psyche constructs these very illusions and how they ultimately become our most gilded prisons. And real quick, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos just like this. Now let's keep going. The hour the lie becomes too loud. It's the unsettling realization that the performance has become more real than the person behind it. The carefully constructed facade, once a shield, is now a cage. This is the space where the psychological architect begins their covert work, not out of malice, but out of a desperate need for survival. They erect walls of our own making, brick by painstaking brick, to protect a core that feels too fragile, too exposed to bear the weight of reality. Shame was the architect. It's the silent, insistent whisper that tells us we are inherently flawed, that our true selves are unacceptable. This is not the fleeting embarrassment of a social faux pas. This is a systemic dismantling of self-worth. It's the primal fear of not being enough, a wound that predates memory, echoing from a time when belonging was a matter of life and death. The architect doesn't build grand castles, but rather a series of interconnected rooms, each designed to conceal a hidden defect. And within these rooms, we are taught to hide. We learn to wear different faces for different people, to stifle the impulses that might reveal our perceived deficiencies. This is the beginning of the internal exile. The more we hide, the more shame solidifies its grip, becoming not just an emotion, but the very blueprint of our inner world. What is the cost of this incessant hiding, this constant vigilance against exposure? The next section will delve into the architecture of these inner sanctuaries of deception. An inner kingdom of masks. The shame architect's masterpiece is complete, not a single fortress, but a sprawling metropolis of false identities, each designed to deflect attention from the empty throne at its center. We walk through this kingdom daily, our faces a rotating gallery of carefully chosen expressions. The stoic one for work, the jovial one for friends, the apologetic one for family. Each mask is a polished shield, reflecting an image we believe is safer than our true face. These aren't mere affectations, they are deeply ingrained survivals, born from a time when authenticity felt like walking naked into a blizzard. A whisper from an ancient memory advises caution, seclusion, disguise. The problem arises when the masks become so seamlessly integrated, so comfortable, that we forget which one is the original. The face beneath begins to atrophy, obscured by layers of practiced smiles and feigned confidence. The mask is the face itself, the ancient texts seem to murmur, not as a statement of fact, but as a mournful observation. We cling to these borrowed visages, fearing the desolate landscape that lies beyond. What happens when the kingdom of masks begins to crumble, not from external assault, but from the internal weariness of maintaining so many illusions? In the next part, we witness the rise of a unique form of internal betrayal. The double agent in the tower. Within this kingdom of masks, a more insidious entity takes root. It is the one who knows all the secret passages, who guards the gates, who is both within the walls and simultaneously observing them from above. This is the double agent, a part of ourselves that has been tasked with vigilance. It operates from a high tower, a vantage point where it can monitor all entrances and exits, all conversations, all thoughts. Its primary directive is containment. It ensures that the masks remain in place, that no genuine impulse escapes. It is the internal prosecutor, ready to condemn any deviation from the prescribed performance. It is the self-surveillance system that never sleeps. Its methods are subtle: a pang of guilt for a moment of genuine joy, a sudden surge of anxiety when a door to vulnerability cracks open. It whispers doubts, amplifies fears, and reinforces the necessity of the established order. This agent is not your enemy in the conventional sense. It is a creation of necessity, born from the architect's blueprint of shame and fear. It believes it is protecting you from destruction by keeping you locked away from yourself. But captivity, no matter how well-intentioned, breeds a deep and abiding suffering. The agent, in its rigid adherence to its programming, becomes the architect of your silent imprisonment. What happens when this agent, tasked with guarding illusion, is confronted by a mythic pattern of return? The next section explores this disorienting paradox. The prodigal son returns to the wrong home. The myth of the prodigal son speaks of a journey outward, a seeking of experience, and an eventual return. But what if the return is not to a welcoming embrace, but to a rebuilt house, a familiar yet alien landscape? This is the disquieting experience when the part of us that has been away, seeking something more, finally comes back. We expect the old rooms, the familiar cracks in the plaster, perhaps even the lingering scent of what was left behind. Instead, we find a gilded cage. The structures are still there, but they are now reinforced. The masks have been polished to a blinding sheen. The double agent is more vigilant than ever, its tower now equipped with advanced surveillance. The prodigal, having ventured into the world and tasted both freedom and despair, now stands at the threshold of his own inner structure. He carries with him the wisdom of his wanderings, a wisdom that now clashes violently with the entrenched illusions he left behind. He doesn't recognize the home. The family, the self he knew, has been fundamentally altered by the architect's ongoing renovations. The embrace he craves is now a handshake across a polished mahogany desk. This is the internal contradiction. The desire for genuine reintegration is met with the perfected mechanisms of avoidance. The home he yearned for is now the most sophisticated prison. What happens when the return is not to solace, but to a more refined form of confinement? In the next section, we face a mirror that offers no comfort, only endless repetition. Nietzsche's infinite mirror. The wrong home is a reflection, but not of what we hoped. It's a perfect, sterile imitation, an infinite mirror that shows us only what we have become, devoid of any hint of what we once were or what we yearn to be. This is where Nietzsche's idea of eternal recurrence lands, not as a philosophical concept, but as a lived, internal horror. The thought that this perfected, masked existence, this return to the polished cage, is all there is, forever. The prodigal son, standing in this sterile hall of mirrors, sees only himself, refracted into countless identical figures. Each one wears a perfect mask, each one operates with flawless efficiency, each one is trapped in the same cycle. There is no escape from this reflection. Every avenue leads back to the same image. This is not growth, this is not progress, this is a horrifying stasis, a perfected loop of avoidance. The weight of this infinite reflection begins to press down, a suffocating realization. The masks no longer feel like protection, they feel like shackles. The vigilance of the double agent is now the oppressive silence of doom. The architect's shame has built an eternal tomb. How can one break free from a pattern that is designed to be unbreakable, a mirror that shows no exit? The next section explores the seductive comfort that arises from the very illusion of escape. The seduction of almost healing. In the face of the infinite mirror and the perfected cage, there arises a desperate need for reprieve. This is where the subtle seduction of almost healing takes hold. It's the promise of a quick fix, a spiritual balm that smooths over the cracks without addressing the fault lines. It's the self-help book that offers platitudes, the therapy session that provides temporary relief, the mindful exercise that distracts rather than confronts. These are the anesthetics of the soul, offering a temporary escape from the suffocating weight of the infinite mirror. They whisper, "You're doing so well, just a little more of this, and you'll be there." But there never arrives. The double agent in the tower applauds these surface-level interventions. They keep the masks intact, the kingdom functioning, the illusions unperturbed. Almost healing is the ultimate success of the architect's design. It allows us to believe we are on a path, that progress is being made, without ever having to dismantle the prison. We become experts in the performance of healing, collecting certificates and testimonials, while the core wound festers, unnoticed and untended. This is the spiritual bypassing, the avoidance of the difficult, messy, and vital work of true transformation. It is the siren song that lures us onto the rocks of perpetual almostness. What happens when the voice of judgment, disguised as helpful advice, becomes unbearable? In the next section, we hear the echo of the exiled child. The inner critic is the exiled child's voice. That nagging voice, the relentless judge, the one who points out every imperfection, every lapse, every perceived failure, it is not an external force. It is the echo of the small, wounded self, exiled to the deepest chambers of the inner kingdom. This child, once vibrant and full of genuine expression, was shamed into silence. Its impulses were deemed too messy, its needs too demanding, its very existence too much. It was hidden away, and its voice was suppressed. But a suppressed voice does not die, it transforms. It becomes the inner critic, using the very language of condemnation that was once used against it. It is a desperate attempt to control the external world by perfecting the internal one, a misguided effort to finally earn acceptance. This critic operates with the authority of a prosecutor, armed with all the evidence of your perceived shortcomings. It is the architect's most effective tool, ensuring that the masks never slip, that the kingdom remains secure. When you hear that voice telling you you're not good enough, that you're making a mistake, that you're fundamentally flawed, remember the exiled child. Remember the tender vulnerability that was forced into hiding. This voice is not your truth, but a twisted reflection of pain. It is a desperate plea for safety, born from a profound lack of love. What happens when this exiled voice seeks not further condemnation, but a silent space to simply be? The next section explores this profound architectural shift. The mirror is architecture, not reflection. For so long, we have believed the mirror to be a passive observer, a transparent surface reflecting the world as it is. But in the architecture of the inner kingdom, the mirror is far more. It is the very structure itself. The infinite mirror is not showing you reality, it is projecting the solidified illusion. The walls of the tower, the surfaces of the gates, the polished masks, these are all built from the substance of what we have chosen to see, or rather, what we have been forced to see. The systems you inhabit, the societal structures, the rigid definitions of time and space, even the names you carry, these are not external impositions. They are the grand architecture of your internal landscape, etched into the very fabric of what you perceive as real. The geometry of your life, the patterns of your daily existence, are not random occurrences. They are the blueprints of your unconscious prison, meticulously laid out by the architect of shame and the double agent of vigilance. When you look into this mirror, you are not seeing an objective truth. You are seeing the solidified architecture of your own internal imprisonment, a testament to the ways you have been contained. Nietzsche's infinite mirror is not a reflection of existence, but the very cage. This is not a passive observation. It is an active participation in the construction of your own reality. The gates of this architecture only swing inward, never outward. What happens when this structure, designed for containment, begins to reveal a hidden allegiance? The next section delves into this subversion. Sabotage as sacred allegiance. Within the rigid architecture of the inner kingdom, a peculiar form of rebellion begins to stir. It is not an overt act of defiance, but a subtle, almost imperceptible sabotage of the very systems designed to keep you trapped. This is the unconscious allegiance to a deeper truth, a hidden loyalty to the exiled child, to the authentic self that has been buried beneath layers of performance and denial. The sabotaging agent is, in essence, a sacred rebel. It is the missed appointment that prevents a painful interaction, the forgotten task that disrupts a meticulously planned outing, the seemingly accidental outburst that shatters a carefully constructed illusion. These are not random mistakes. They are the quiet tremors beneath the foundations of the fortress, the hairline fractures appearing in the polished masks. The double agent sees these as failures, as betrayals, but they are, in fact, tiny acts of liberation. This sabotage is a whispered promise from the authentic self, a message that the true allegiance lies not with the architect or the guard, but with the buried spark of being. It's a recognition that the systems of control, however sophisticated, are ultimately hollow. This is not an intentional strategy, but an emergent property of a soul yearning for freedom, a testament to the enduring power of the true self to disrupt even the most fortified prisons. But what is the ultimate purpose of this self-inflicted disruption? The next section looks to the inescapable structure itself. The tower will not let you out. The double agent in the tower, the vigilant guardian of the inner kingdom, has a singular purpose: to maintain the status quo. And the tower itself, the pinnacle of this internal architecture, becomes the ultimate symbol of that containment. From its high vantage point, the agent believes it can control all threats, all deviations, all incursions of authenticity. It has been programmed to see any attempt at escape as the greatest danger, a threat to the illusion of safety it has so carefully constructed. The tower is not just a physical structure within the psyche. It is the embodiment of rigid control, of unwavering adherence to the architect's blueprints. It's the belief that safety lies in absolute predictability, in the complete suppression of the wild, untamed aspects of the self. The sabotage that occurs below only reinforces the agent's conviction. More vigilance is needed, tighter controls, a more impenetrable fortress. The tower becomes both the seat of power and the ultimate prison. When the doors of perception are sealed by unwavering dogma, when the windows of the soul are bricked over with fear, the tower becomes a tomb. The external systems of order, the societal pressures, the unexamined beliefs, these all contribute to the erection of this inner tower. We are so focused on the walls that we forget the architect. We are so aware of the agent that we forget who sent them. What happens when the only escape from this tower is not out of it, but through its very foundation? The next section reveals a powerful act of internal dissent. Silence as rebellion against the inner trial. In a world that demands constant performance, a cacophony of opinions and self-declarations, the act of true silence becomes a radical act of rebellion. It is not the silence of emptiness, but the potent quietude of refusal. The inner trial, presided over by the double agent and judged by the exiled child's harshest voice, thrives on noise. It demands confessions, justifications, and explanations. It seeks to trap you in a loop of self-recrimination. But when you withdraw from this trial, when you refuse to participate in the noisy demands for narrative, a different kind of power emerges. True silence is the refusal to offer up your soul for dissection. It is the ultimate withholding of consent. This is not the passive silence of resignation. It is the active silence of a withdrawn army, the strategic quiet of a besieged fortress refusing to engage. It is a declaration that the internal court has no jurisdiction over the true self. This silence is the echo of the untamed. It is the space where the exiled child can finally breathe, unburdened by the need to perform or explain. It is the slow dissolution of the masks, not through force, but through neglect. The architect's meticulous plans begin to falter when their grand pronouncements are met with an impenetrable wall of quietude. The tower, designed for strategic observation, finds itself staring into a void of non-compliance. What profound, elemental truth lies beneath this silent defiance? The next section reveals the core of this isolation. The eternal orphan behind all patterns. Beneath the layers of masks, the vigilant agents, and the crumbling towers lies a core of profound isolation. It is the awareness of being fundamentally alone, the experience of the eternal orphan. This is not a state of being abandoned by others, but a deeper, existential aloneness. It is the realization that at the deepest level of consciousness, one is solely responsible for one's own existence, one's own choices, one's own meaning. The patterns we create, the systems we build, the relationships we seek, they are all, in part, attempts to fill this primordial void, to find solace for this inherent orphanhood. We seek belonging, validation, and connection to escape the stark reality of our solitary journey. The double agent's vigilance, the architect's shame, the prodigal son's wrong return, all stem from this deep-seated orphan energy. It is the fear of facing the universe as an isolated entity without preordained purpose or external validation. When the masks begin to crack and the towers begin to crumble, this orphan state is exposed. It is the raw, unvarnished truth of our existence, a truth that can be terrifying but also, paradoxically, liberating. This recognition of being the eternal orphan is not a condemnation, but a fundamental aspect of the human condition. It is the birthplace of true autonomy, the wellspring from which authentic selfhood can finally emerge. What happens when the performance of healing is unmasked by this raw truth? The next section addresses this disillusionment. The death of the false healer within. The pursuit of almost healing is often driven by a deeply ingrained need to be the healer, not just of others, but of oneself. It is the desperate attempt to mend the perceived brokenness that the orphan energy so starkly reveals. This false healer is a construct, a polished version of self-care that avoids the true depths of pain. It offers platitudes and quick fixes, a superficial balm that fails to address the underlying wound. It is an allegiance to the illusion of control, a denial of the messy, arduous process of genuine transformation. This healer's toolkit is filled with borrowed wisdom, with practices that soothe rather than purify, with affirmations that distract from the silent scream of the exiled child. It is a performative act of wholeness, designed to impress both the self and the watchful eyes of the inner tribunal. The death of this false healer is not a loss, but a necessary shedding. It is the dismantling of the last great defense against authenticity. It is the recognition that true healing cannot be achieved through avoidance or superficial adornment. When the false healer dies, it is not a moment of despair, but a moment of reckoning. It is the clearing of the ground, the removal of debris, so that something true, something resilient, can finally begin to grow. What remains when the performance of healing is finally over? The next section invites a radical act of repossession. Sit in the rubble, reclaim the pen, the facade has crumbled, the false healer has passed. You stand amidst the ruins of your former self, not in despair, but in a profound stillness. This is the threshold of true authorship. The rubble is not a testament to failure, but to the relentless, honest work of deconstruction. It is the fertile ground where something real can finally take root. The void left by the dissolved illusions is not emptiness, but possibility. One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star, the ancient fragments whisper. This chaos, this rubble, is the raw material of your becoming. From this unvarnished truth, you reclaim not a belief system, but the pen of your own narrative. Reclaiming authorship is not about adopting a new identity, but about taking full accountability for the one that has been so meticulously constructed and then, willingly or not, dismantled. It is the courageous act of owning every shadow, every perceived flaw, every act of sabotage. This is not self-soothing. It is deep, unflinching self-confrontation. It is the recognition that you are the architect, the agent, the prodigal, and the orphan. And in acknowledging all of it, you gain the power to write the next chapter not from a place of fear, but from a place of fierce, uncompromised integrity. Now that concludes this video. Make sure to subscribe for more videos and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. We'll see you in the next one.